a couple of things. One, it's going to be multi-government agencies, meaning the city, the county, the state, and national are going to have to work together to determine, is the interstate large enough? There's talk about putting an interstate out around by the Tucson Mountains, which I'm against. But there is room to actually expand the current interstate, right? I-10. The second part is the Regional Transportation Authority is going to get reauthorized. So this is a tax that we pay right now to improve county roads and city roads. And what I've learned is that, of course, the city at one point wanted to move it out and do their own authority. And my take on that is all roads lead to Tucson. And so what that means is that every road in our county comes to Tucson. So whether we improve the roads in Marana, Arivaca, or here in Tucson, they all impact our economic ability to drive, right? And so what that means is that we've got to make sure that with what we have in terms of current infrastructure, we work together and determine, do we expand, or do we attract new people like myself, right, that essentially work from home. What the economy is no longer just you're going straight to a business and you work 8 hours a day. For myself, in my situation, when I'm born and raised Tucson, but when I went to Phoenix, what I did was bring my job back here and I work from home. And I'm fortunate enough that I make over $100,000. And so I hope that we can drive more jobs, high paying jobs such as that, right? Or do we strategically put these jobs, manufacturing, and other small businesses in our suburban areas? So there's ways to do it, right? We just have to be strategic.
And they're big questions that there's not necessarily one answer for it.
Right.
But the way you're saying it is basically creating like a hybrid kind of job where people could work from home, have more options. That would lead to streets being less busy. But it also comes to a point like Edgar is saying, if we're adding more, there's going to be more traffic,
right,
like to what your point is saying. So it's those are big questions that you guys are basically signing up for.
Miguel's right on the money with the RTA, our Regional Transportation Authority. That's going to be a key factor, and our representative Ted Maxwell is out there, fighting for Southern Arizona to make sure that we have the roads and the infrastructure, because growth is coming. Now, we're not going to, whether it's through Vail or Marana, right. It's coming. And so the question is, do we want to start looking at the infrastructure and the roads to make sure that we're ready for it, right? And it comes down to us being united and working together, cities, counties, state, and making sure that there's a lot of smart people out there. And there's, and what I've realized is there's a lot of problems that need to be solved, complex problems like roads. And they can't be solved at an individual level. It's going to take people with shared values, shared community, who can figure out these solutions to these problems. And for my experience, the people closest to the problem are the people that most likely have the solution. So there's cities and there's like benchmarking, there's best practices around that are doing some things really well. And so I think that, if we get the right people at the table and we have these type of discussions, we can figure it out. But growth is coming, so we better make sure we're ready for it.
I've heard both on that. So let's say if let's say we currently have a process in place and people that are closest to the problem may have the solution. But I've also heard, and I've seen it work myself, where when you bring in sometimes fresh perspective, like sometimes something clicks.
Well, that just like diversity, right?
Yeah, which is
diverse people coming.
Why I like Tucson, because
so you get
wide pool
solutions to problems. Yeah, I mean, so one of the other challenges is we talk about the unhoused, the homelessness, and businesses coming and they see some of these encampments, on the side of the freeway and along golf links, so that's one of the things that that Miguel and I are going to have our hands full, because that's, I don't know about you, Miguel, but that's kind of the feedback I'm getting from a lot of our constituents that are out there, like what, how are we going to deal with those issues?
Which is a great question.
We wanted to cover.
Lead right into that.
Yeah. I mean, homelessness is one, a part of my platform, right? And talking about it. First off, what's driving it, right? Unfortunately, the opioid pandemic has exacerbated it, right? And for myself, I live on Grand and Silver Bell, so I see it every day, like yourselves, right? Near, typically by the bridges, by parks, by under the freeway, and the other part is that is kind of an invisible problem right now, but will be an issue, is the migrants that are coming in. Right now, the federal government has been providing funding in order to make sure that they're housed or have temporary placement, but that funding can run out and almost did just recently in April. Fortunately, President Biden and his administration were able to extend that. And so what happens is that problem can be 2 to 4-fold if that migrant crisis does not get a permanent solution from Congress and from the president. And so now you've got two big issues that are causing this, right? So the first one is, how do we get folks that are dealing with opioid or other addictions the help that they need, but they also have to want it, right? And so we've got to make sure that we team up with nonprofits and continue the work that the city and the county is doing in order to make sure that we remain compassionate about it, but also we have to continue to focus, as it is a safety issue, right? We've got to make sure, we protect all parties involved. And as far as the migrant crisis, I appreciate what Edgar said, right? This border crossed us essentially, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, as Southern Arizonans, one, let's make sure, their path here, that it's a safe path as much as possible. Myself, even though this is not a county issue, I definitely will, stand up every dang time about fixing the path to citizenship and giving them a safer path. I've been fortunate enough to travel all across Latin America, particularly in Colombia. And I know that a lot of Venezuelans and Colombians have actually taken this path, and it's an incredibly dangerous path. And so what I've also learned is that if they have a clear path of how they can get to that citizenship, or whether it's the DREAM Act or however, I think that they would take it. And so what you're hearing me say is like essentially that it's a very complicated issue, right?
Yeah.
And we essentially have to understand and take on the opioid issue. And then for the immigration or migration particular issue, it's going to be, how do we solve it locally? But really, it's a national issue, right? And we've got to press on our congresspersons to do the right thing and act on our behalf. And some are, and we can't get the others to step up to the plate. Then we've got to get those that are willing to get things done elected.
Yeah, so Miguel hit a lot of key points there. And to start off with the unhoused is, so I have personal experience with this. One of my former ball players, Ingles Blanco, he actually has been, homeless, in and out of rehab. Right. And so his pattern was he'd go to Salvation Army for 30 days because you get 30 days there. And then he'd go across the street to Tent City. And that was how he handled things, right? And so he took me out there to Tent City one time, and it's a whole little community, right? And I'm talking to some of the people there, and I realized we don't have a homeless issue. We have a fentanyl and a mental health issue. Yeah. And so one of the things that trying to help him navigate this, because we have more nonprofits in Tucson per capita than anywhere in the country. So we've got a lot of caring people, right. But what happens is we're not all pulling in the same direction sometimes. So it takes someone to come in and help everybody get on the same page and pull in the same direction. But here's what I've learned through this. I play in a 50 and over old man softball league, and it's at Santa Rita Park. Mm-hmm. So if you're familiar with Santa Rita Park, that's where a lot of the homeless, set up their tents and everything. And I have conversations with them when I'm out there in the Alpha, talking to them, kind of getting their stories. And, one of the things that I know is that if someone's most of the programs we have, you got to be off drugs or you have to have a job, right? Correct. But if you're trying to get rid of, battle a dependency issue, or you're trying to get a job, you have to have somewhere to lay your head. So one of the ideas is housing first, right? With accountability, you got to have the support services around it. Now, some cities are doing what's called sanctioned camping, where they're having certain areas and they have like security because
Is
there's
that
a
like
lot of
San Francisco?
no,
You
I
know
don't
how
think
they have one in the middle of the city.
they might, it might be. I'm not familiar with San Francisco, but I know people that come from California express how challenging it's been out there. But if you had, say, sanctioned camping, but then to the next level, maybe you had some of these small houses that they're also talking about, and you just had levels of different programs to get them home, get them housed. But here's the other reality: we've got to be compassionate because there's some people whose brains are just fried. Like, we're gonna have to be a humane community or county where we're gonna have to take care of some people.
Right.
So and then to hit what Miguel was talking about, he's correct that the border issue is a federal issue, right?
Right.
And we do need to be humane and compassionate. Some of my former athletes are border patrol, and I talk to them about what are some of the challenges, right? And so one of the thoughts is that, of course, this is a federal issue where that's where the funding comes from, and they're responsible. But if you had, say, three ports of entry, California, one in Texas, and one in Arizona, right? And they have to come through these port of entries, right? And at those port of entries, you have all the support services around them. So the judges, the lawyers, the health, and you get them going through that port of entry to be asylum seekers coming that way. Because right now they're coming through different areas, and they're there's some human trafficking going on while that's happening. So that's the other thing, is there's a lot of people that are here that have been here for a long time, paying taxes, haven't committed any crimes, that there's not a pathway for them. So we got to figure out ways that they can get get through this
people
process.
here that they migrated over here at 2-3 years old.
2-3 years old, yeah.
So for them, the thought of going back to Mexico,
that does not make
like,
sense. Yeah, those are the dreamers. Those are the ones that we've actually had some legislation passed through that was going to support that, and Obama was a big part of that. So that's the other thing, is there's a lot of people, and that's what's frustrating. When Juan Ciscomani and Raul Grijalva both talked about this, they had an event a while back, and they had some discussion, but they talked about that there's a lot of people, our DACA students that are here, done everything right, and that having to pay out-of-state tuition or not getting the service or living in the shadows.
Different. It's from paying in-state to out-of-state. It's quite the difference.
Exactly.
Well, I
So
can
obviously-
definitely appreciate it.
Right.
I mean, I think all of us, any one of us can say that we've somehow been affected by either the opioid crisis or, the migrant issue. I mean, we all have family or friends, or I know personally, my own family's been homeless and addicted to drugs. So these are all things that, while yes, they're federal and national issues, they affect us locally on a very, very, very personal level. And so I'm glad to see that you guys are taking on these issues personally and in,
And I like that you touched base on that, Edgar, that there's policies, yes, there's people, there's thousands of people, but your baseline is humanizing it.
Yes.
Like, they're just people. There's some people that really need help, or it's within, not the solution is not within their reach. So obviously there's different things. There's homelessness. Homelessness doesn't mean that they're out on the street. Sometimes they're just crashing in a friend's couch. So I think we also kind of touch base on that. It's a big undertaking. With the role that you're both applying for, how much influence of that do you guys have? Is that something you guys have to fight for every day, or how does that even look like for someone that doesn't necessarily know anything about the role?
Yeah, I think that as a board of supervisor, it's going to have you're going to have a lot of influence, right? Especially if these are national issues. So we definitely will have the attention, right, of our local congresspersons. Right now, Ciscomani and Grijalva, for the most part, represent most of our districts. And so while they may be leading the effort, they're definitely going to be looking towards us to say, what's going on? What are you hearing? So having that partnership is going to be incredibly important. The other part is we're going to have to, in some cases, we're in a kind of interesting paradigm where the state sees our path very differently than the county does, right? We for now, have a conservative state legislature. And we're a blue sea, right? A blue spot in the Red Sea, as I've heard before. And that's changing. Californians are moving here and turning us purple. And so, for the most part, they are, And so, what that means is then from a county level, then we can also do certain things legislatively. Or if we have to, there's going to be some showdowns between the state and the county, right? In terms of some of these issues that we're seeing and how we should solve them. So our influence is great, but we also have direct impact to them.
Is it wrong that I got excited at showdowns? I'm like, let's go. Let's go.
Because I think you, as for the position you guys are both intending to acquire, you gotta have grit, because there's some days that I'm sure that you'll have plenty of obstacles where what the end goal is, but there's gonna be all this different things.
Well, I mean, so if you look at my website or any of my information that's out there, one of the things that I put in there is veteran educator and coach. Yep. And the reason I put coach in there is because one of the things that I've learned as a leader is that my experience, coaching and being athletics has really helped me, because you have to put together teams and you have to get people in the right roles and you have to bring people together. And we can't do this alone. It's got to be done with us being united. So I think the key is you got to be able to work across the aisle. One of the things that happened a while back is I got endorsed by Mayor Honey. Mayor Honey is the mayor of Marana, and he's a Republican. But, I think what he saw in me, that I'm willing to work with Democrats, Republican, independents, and I think we need to have that type of attitude as far as if we want to get anything done. We can't let, you're an R, you're a D, you're this or that. Right. No. If you're about building community, I'm on board. Let's go. But if you're about creating barriers to build community, then that's a red light. No, we don't want to create barriers. We want to create pathways. So that's why the pathway to prosperity and some of the things the county doing, there's some positive things, coming down the road that I think that you need to make sure that people are in that level that are going to continue to build some momentum to do good things for our county.
That's exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah, it's all exciting. It's exciting to hear both of you speak about it, especially so passionately. So it's cool to be a part of it.
I'm a lot louder, right? And I'm trying to keep my voice down a little bit. Yeah.
Same.
Same.
Mike, you guys are I'm definitely holding back in here, but that's okay. That's all right.
On our drive over here, I'm like, you get 4 talkers in one room. Like,
I know.
Shut us up. Like,
yeah.
Awesome. Who else is running for District 3? Have you guys met your oppositions?
I have not personally.
Is this
met
the
them.
first time you both are in the same room?
I mean, I recognize he looks really familiar, so I'm sure we've crossed our paths. But it's the first time we officially. It's the first time we officially met. Yeah, I've met April Ignacio. She's telling all of them. She's one of the other candidates, and then Jennifer Allen. We run into each other all the time. We're up in Ajo just the other day, so yeah, her and I have crossed paths many times. So I mean, and there's some quality people here. In competition, I call it co-opetition, right? Because you want to be competitive because it brings out the best in us. Sometimes it brings out the worst in some. But you want to get exposed to a lot of different things, a lot of different people, and then we vote. We have and I'm not for everybody, and there's some people that might not agree with everything I'm saying, but there's a good majority that do agree with kind of the path I'm taking.
I like that, but I also believe that I firmly believe that you're not for everyone, and that's something that we try to. That's our message, even within our podcast. Is like, just you're not for everyone. You got to be okay with that, and just.
It's important to not be for everyone, because that speaks to your authenticity. No matter who or what viewpoint you're coming from, is if you remain authentic, then the right people find you, and I mean, hopefully they're voting.
Yeah. I think that was like kind of one of the first things when I, ran for this was I had to make sure that I was in a place that I was, I'm in it to win it, but also if I lose, life goes on, right? And fortunately, I've had my own, public losses when I was not reelected to the school board. And so for myself, I joined this race knowing that, one, I'm ready to have that conversation with our district. And you asked a question like, how do you effectively lead? For myself, I have a servant's heart. So what that means is the needs of our district and our community is going to come first. And so essentially what that means is that I've elected not to do the political social circles. So I have not met any of my, besides today, I'd rather do the work and go to the front door. And to this point, we've been to 5,000 houses, and we're going to go to 10,000 more houses by July 30th. And signs are about to come up in a week or two. We're doing digital ads. So I've elected to do a different conversation, right? More of a ground game. And I think that's my path, right, to winning this.
I think I mentioned it in the podcast because we were talking about your tragic everything that you've done,
Yeah.
and one of our listeners agreed with what I said. I said he's done a lot for his age. How do you answer that when someone says that you're possibly too young for this role?
Well, the fortunate thing is I come with a wealth of experience, right? So it's not the years that count, it's the life that matters. And so for me, I've been fortunate enough to be on the school board. I was the youngest elected, beat out Congressman Grajava on that. I was 21. And it was, I gave my hair to it. I went bald after, shutting.
There's a sacrifice for everything we do.
Closing 20 schools and cutting $100 million was the hardest thing I've done in my life, right? And it was a lesson learned, right, of politics, of how to make decisions, how to make policy decisions. So I've been, fortunate enough to have that experience. I've been, when you think about my private sector experience, you're going to find that I've been in the private sector for 18 years. That's more than most of my competition. So while I may be 37, I still have, the education to back it up. I have the private experience. Started my own small business last year. It's very small. It hasn't moved, but I'm learning these things, right? And so for myself, I've just been fortunate enough and blessed with all of these experiences. And for me, I'm a lifelong learner, right? So I'm constantly learning and growing.
Age does not equate experience, and I think we've talked about that. And the lifelong learning, I think that's what gets you that.
And I think a lot of times education too.
Right.
Living it
Living it.
is, yes, education is beneficial. Yes, we want to push education. Never would I say it's not important. And it absolutely is, but man, nothing beats that real life, like feet on the ground.
Right? Application,
just, yeah.
Like you went through it yourself.
Feet on the ground and
you're like, okay.
flying. So
maybe all that was setting you up for this.
We'll see. For those that don't know my story, my parents were not high school graduates, and I became that first high school graduate, right? And I'm one of the first to get my college degree and obviously my master's as well. And really, I'm the first one out of my family outside of Mexico to travel the world. I've been fortunate enough to travel this world several hundreds of thousands of miles, from the Philippines to China, right? All the way to India. And so part of it is that life experience. So I've been exposed to different cultures, and obviously I've seen communist China and how they do their work. Not the way I want us to, right? But definitely.
as long as I'm running things, I think it'll be okay.
Probably being watched 100% of the time is not what I had in mind.
As long as it's me.
Right. But that helps me appreciate what we have, right? Like we're in a very good place. It doesn't seem like that sometimes, right? But when I look at, the infrastructure and what we have in terms of our education system, we're in a very good place in this global competition. And so for me, when I was on that school board, that was part of what I wanted to do, was to improve the education of all students, right? And that was a Latino majority district. And, that was my main focus. And you saw after I left that board, TUSD is not in the news anymore. It's the University of Arizona. So all the politics and all that drama, because we made hard decisions and hard financial decisions, that has really taken a lot of the drama. And TUSD also moved from a D-rated district to a B district. So while some will say, oh, he was mired in controversy, if you're looking for someone to get something done, and private businesses know this, and this is why I've been fortunate enough to work for big companies, is that they know that I'll get stuff done. And so that's what I want to translate to the voters, is that if you're serious about solving the homelessness and the county road issues, call me up and I'll get it done. And that has been my track record in my private and also in my public work.
Oh, that was a nice little wrap.
All right. You want me to wrap it up now also?
Yeah.
All right. No, I just want to honor Miguel for taking this on. You know, he's been in politics and he understands this is a heavy lift, you know, so
It is.
so it's not for everybody. And like I said, I'm not a politician. I'm a practitioner. I've been in education for, 30 years. And so I've seen it at the ground level. But one of the things I've realized is there's a lot of things we can do at the county level, at the state level, at the federal level to make a difference, like early childhood education, right? Ages 0 to 5, 90% of your brain is developed. You know, there's a famous Nobel Prize winner economist named James Heckman, and he says for every dollar you invest in early childhood education, you get a $16 return on your investment. So you can eliminate a lot of the support services we have because you have built a good foundation for these children. So those type of things where government, county can do some things to make a positive impact is important. And one of the things that I always hang my hat on is I've always given out my personal cell number.
Right.
I think as elected officials, as administrators, is you've got to be accessible, not just with everybody that agrees with you, kind of like what you said, Martine, is that you got to also listen to people that don't agree with you, right? And so, I care about this community. I'm from this community, my family, I have a big family, and I want to make sure that it's not just better now, but better for generations. So that's why I've kind of put my name in the hat and I'm doing everything I can to win this election. So I'm excited what the future has for Southern Arizona.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's definitely got me more excited. I mean,
How
just
do we
to hear
get
you
people
guys.
to vote?
Yeah.
How do we? Well, so one, for myself, votemiguel.com. You can interact. Like Edgar, I went a step further. You can even find my home address right on there as well. I've decided to do that. My cell phone number's on there.
I wouldn't even do that, and I'm just a personal trainer.
Anyone that wants to find your home address, they will.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's all public. Let's be clear, especially
I'm
if you're
teasing
voters,
with you.
right?
Yeah.
But for myself, so a couple of things. July 30th is the big date. But
30th.
really, early ballots come out, I believe, the first week of July. So this is a Democratic primary. Democrats, I believe it's something like there will probably be 18 to 21,000 voters that will show up. Of those 21,000 voters, about 18,000 of them will vote in the early ballot. So the real decision is made several weeks before the early ballot. So that's why you're hearing me say, hey, we're doing the ground game now. Because I learned that, right, in previous elections. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. You both are like taking a different approach from my perspective, from what I'm sitting. It seems like you are involved in not politics, but a lot of people that are already running.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're on the other end where like, leave me out of it. What's the difference there?
Yeah.
Well,
Is it personal experience?
Well, it's personal experience, but also I'm self-funding this campaign, right? So I've already spent about $35,000 of my own money, and I'd rather spend my money talking to the voters than spending it on a $5,000 dinner at the Democratic Party. Not what I'm wanting to do. What I've learned is that if I run a very lean campaign and focus on the flyers, the mailers, the campaign signs, this is going to give me a fighting chance. Our main opponent has $100,000 in the bank, and so that's huge, and that's not something to just pretend like it doesn't exist. And so for myself, everything that I do, I'm very intentional about my time and energy, and I'd rather spend my time and energy on the ground with the voters. And I think you see it being on my social media. Every day I've committed 2 to 3 hours walking, talking to voters, and I've learned that, right, as well. I mean, if you can't beat them, join them. And I've seen every political machine be successful because they have a strong ground game. And that's the way that I think I will win this.
Cool. Very exciting. Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right.
I mean, like I said, I'm new to this, so I've not taken the traditional approach as far as with the ground game. I've just been trying to get my name out there. I feel like I've been in Tucson so long. I've made a lot of contacts that
I think
for
you've
me,
made a name for yourself.
yeah, it's more for me activating and organizing. I think I've got a lot of people that have supported me and know me personally, and that know that I care
Not
about
to
this
cut
game.
you off, Edgar, but people that know you
Mhm.
is because they know you through Pima. They know you because you coach their kids. They know you.
Yeah.
You've had influence on them already,
Yeah.
and they see you in that regard. So they're like, that guy is the one for
Yeah.
me. They say.
Yeah. So, I don't know how this is going to turn out. I mean, I know that with anything, it's all about giving your best.
Yeah.
Give
Right.
your best. There's this book called The Four Agreements, right? Be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personal.
Miguel Ruiz.
Always do your best. And what's the fourth one
I
I'm
love
thinking
that
of?
one.
There's
I'll
a fourth
Google
one. The
it,
four.
but-
You'll Google it. But and so that's what I'm about. And when I was in athletics, my thing was there's going to be winners and losers, but the key is you just got to give your best effort. If you give your best effort, you can feel good about what you're doing.
And I think that's one of the things that even on your page, because I know you got endorsement from the former County 3 supervisor, Sharon, I believe. Sharon, what's her last name?
Bronson, yeah.
So you got endorsement. And
Yeah.
one of the things that she highlighted in that note that she made to you, that the endorsement,
Mhm.
is that you understand the intricacies of policies, but you take priority in talking to people and understanding
just
people
listening.
and just
You gotta listen.
knowing
Like,
that
Yeah, I don't
Yes,
have any
there's-
personal policies or agenda. My job is to listen to you. You tell me what you need, and then, one of the things I always share as a leader, sometimes the best thing we could do as a leader is get out of the way. You know what I mean? And give people
I've
what
learned
they
that
need
one
to
the
be
hard way.
successful.
Yeah.
You got to give
Oh.
people what they need to be successful, and they're gonna do the right things most of the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wow.
Well, that's really, yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate both of you being
Yep,
thank
so
you.
respectable
mhm.
to each other and about each other.
That's how it
That is
should be.
really,
Yeah,
I
mhm.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And so it's nice to sit in here and talk with
I was
you
about
guys.
to bring my boxing gloves.
For
Mandy and
I. yeah, not for
Full
you two.
coach,
yeah,
For
yeah.
us, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be
Be
in
the
your
other
corner.
side of the
Yeah.
aisle. I don't think that's how we do
no.
it
Yeah.
as Democrats.
Yeah.
Not the
Okay.
way.
Wrong room.
Yeah.
Right. Wrong crowd. Yeah.
I don't think
But
that's
there is a time and a place for the gloves.
I love it. I love that we can have this type of dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the time and place is Templo,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
This is when we drop in
Actually.
for Templo.
Yeah.
Check
Yeah.
out our current promotion.
Boxing,
Exactly.
kickboxing.
I love it.
You
I
can
love
do.
that we all connected through Templo,
Yeah.
and as
Thank
we're
you.
going through our own walks of life, like we have conversations like this, and I
Yes.
hope
Yeah.
we can do this again at some
And
point.
continue to.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Edgar, Miguel, both
Appreciate
best of
it.
luck to you
Thank
both.
you, guys.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Mandy, anything else to
Yes.
add? You didn't ask about your pothole.
Well, I think we addressed the road issue. I was.
I had to talk to Mandy on the way over here. I'm like, Mandy, do not bring up the pothole.
No,
Where
I
is
know.
it?
I've seen
No.
Is it on
My
Silverville?
entire
'Cause I
road.
hit them.
No, but my entire road. I mean, my big thing was I literally had to have my motor mounts replaced in my car
Oh, yeah.
because of Tucson roads. In a car that does not 4-wheel drive. It's just a car.
Yeah, yeah.
And I haven't had it that long. And it's like
So we're
motor
taking a
mounts.
road trip from here over there.
No,
You're going to my house.
Go down Guy Santa Cruz right there in front of Desert Vista campus.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, I've been through.
I've
there.
lost so many hubcaps.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I've lost like 2 hubcaps, and I see them there all the time.
Yeah, and the last 2 years, or last year, I'm sorry, I've completely busted brand new tire on a pothole. And so my big
Yeah.
issue coming
Yeah.
over, I'm just
No,
like,
I know.
oh, we're
No.
going over.
We're talking
We're
about
talking
roads.
about roads.
Let's do that.
We're going to
Let's
talk
do
the
that.
whole time about
No, I
roads.
love it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, no matter what side of the aisle, how you identify, we all drive these same roads, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's it. Sometimes that's a joke I make. I'm
Yeah.
like, there's no way the people that run this city are driving on these roads. There's
They
no
fly
way.
where they go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, which roads are they driving on?
Right.
Because it's not mine.
I love it. All right, guys.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll
Thank
wrap
you.
up
Appreciate it.
now.
Yes, thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Yay.
Awesome.
Not
We went
go to
like,
the rest.
yeah, all the
And,
coffee.
Dude, we could have done this for an hour, but we're
I
like-
know. Well, did we not do it for an hour?
I don't know.
I feel like we might have.
Dude, this was taking me back to like my middle, even kinder. Like, this. I used to
Oh.
draw
I'm
on
ready to
this.
fight.
I